Yeah.
Okay, cool. So we are now live. This is the fourth, Darren, fourth in the lockdown series since we went.
Oh, yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and
Sounds
we
about
have
right.
another international speaker today, which is great. So Test Heads has not only gone from Dublin, having more people from Galway and Cork getting involved, but now we have another great speaker from the States all the way from Texas. So Carol is presenting today the funny things that happen on the way from QA to DevOps. So as per usual, if anyone has any questions or thoughts during the talk, the chat box is there, the question box there. So fire questions in if you like. We can pick them up during, or likelihood is we'll probably just try and run through it, and any questions we have at the end, they'll all be in the Q&A box. So if you have a question even during the talk that you want to bring up at the end, you can put it in there then, and we'll make sure we'll try and get through as many of them as we can. But Carol, take it away. Enjoy, pal.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me. Quick funny story. I met Darren in Potsdam, Germany at Agile Testing Days. And one of the coolest things I remember is we went into a record shop and he bought an AC/DC vinyl album. And I won't forget that. We had a good day. So the title of this talk is, I struggled with what I should call it, but there were a lot of missteps in transitioning from a world of QA to DevOps. And so that's how I landed on the title, kind of after the musical. There were a lot of mishaps on the way to the forum. And so that's where I landed on the title. A little background about myself. I used to be an environmental chemist. And in 1999, I moved into the world of testing QA. And I've been on that journey for a long time, and I've learned lots along the way. And questions are certainly encouraged. Normally when I do this live, I love the interactive nature of questions as the presentation goes. I'm hoping I'll be able to share my story for approximately 30 minutes, and then we can go deep. All right, so let's start off with the challenge. In 2015, HomeAway was purchased by a major company called Expedia. And as with any purchase like that, you know, a transformation is going to happen. And they brought in a new CTO, an inspirational CTO, I will say that. He had been with Boeing, he had been with Microsoft, and of course he'd been with Expedia for many years. And you know, the first thing he did was ask us to get rid of QA and shift to a world of DevOps. We were, on the left, you see the quadrants that come out of the Lisa Crispin, Janet Gregory books, Agile testing, more Agile testing. We were focused on Agile testing and probably in the top two quadrants. Our organization had grown over the years from 14 people to 131 brilliant testers. We had 4 senior managers, 12 managers, 2 automation architects. And we were on cloud 9. We thought we were doing really well. The automation framework was Selenium, Sauce Labs. A couple different languages were used, but primarily Ruby at that time. So we were doing quite well. And then the CTO comes along and wants us to make this transformation. And he kind of asked me to lead this transformation. I was a senior director at the time, so definitely an expectation I should be able to deliver on. So moving from a traditional Agile testing team to a fast, rapid delivery model was going to be challenging. All right, so let's talk about the biggest mistake. All right, so the CTO handed me the book, How Google Tests Software, and he says, I want us to operate like this. And so I rapidly read that book probably a couple times and formed a strategy, went deep. A side story is there's an interview in there with a gentleman by the name of Ankit Mehta. He's still at Google. He was responsible for almost all of their automation framework. I was so anxious about this move, I actually was able to get a call with him, and we talked for an hour and a half. And it gave me confidence, and I thought we were going in the right direction. Where I failed was I did not ask the CTO the powerful questions. Why? Why are we making this transformation? And why do you need it done quickly? I kind of felt like I was in a four-walled room with 20 dartboards on each wall, and he said to hit a dartboard. And every time I hit a dartboard, it wasn't the right one. What I didn't realize was how Google Test Software was written in 2012. And he was already reading 3 books in 2016 when this transformation was taking place. He was reading DevOps Handbook, as you see here. He was reading the SRE, Site Reliability books from Google, and the Site Reliability Workbook. And so I didn't have a magic ball to see that he was already 4 steps ahead of me, and I was still focused on how Google was testing software. So the lessons here is you got to ask the powerful questions. You got to understand the why. I never at this point in time understood the why. So this is something recent that I learned late last year, the Kotter model of change. If you walk away with anything today, walk away with this model in your mind, because if you're going to do a transformation, I think this leads you through it in a very positive way. I'm going to use it to reflect on the mistakes that I made in doing this transformation. All right, so there's lots of good literature, websites out there on this model, and I think it's a pretty good model. All right, so the first thing was, let's create a sense of urgency, is the recommendation from Kotter's model. And I created a sense of urgency, but the wrong sense of urgency. It was like, holy crap, we need to make this transformation. Why are we making the transformation? Because the CTO said so. That's not a very compelling reason, right? So I didn't understand the business outcomes that were desired. I do now, but I didn't at the time. I was very focused on the people, you know, having got to know 131 people throughout the years. I was focused on the impact of the people. And so the urgency was, let's just find new homes for all of the people. And that was a huge mistake. I didn't set the right sense of urgency because I didn't understand the why, the mission. Hindsight, the business outcome the CTO was trying to achieve was speed. How can we deliver highly reliable quality software quickly to our customers? And I could have framed the sense of urgency around that. There's lots of things in the DevOps handbook and reliability engineering about that. And we could have done it very strategically, and I failed to do that. Kotter says to build a coalition. All right, this makes sense. You need to have alignment. You need to have the company backing you in this new vision, this new transformation. Well, I built a coalition, but it was a siloed coalition within the QA community. I had my senior managers, I had the 2 architects, and we started talking and debating and articulating what this would look like. What we should have done is engaged the senior VPs and got them aligned and figured out what they desired and what the constraints they saw. We should have talked to product and engineering and got a holistic view of what this would look like for the company. We didn't, and it comes back to haunt me. All right, so the strategic vision. All right, this makes sense, right? What are we striving to do? What are the milestones? What are the outcomes? I iterated on this probably for 2-3 months. I iterated with the QA leaders. We thought we were getting close. I socialized it with the CTO and a couple of his leaders, and we thought we were ready to go. You know, strategic vision, you see in the future, you know what success looks like. Honestly, when I go back and look at that plan, I did not define that very well. And again, I was focused on the people. Honestly, I was even focused on myself. What does this new world mean to me? What does it mean to all these people? What roles would they have? One of the architects, reflecting back on it, he was extremely critical of the strategic plan. I don't necessarily understand his motivations, but in hindsight, his criticisms were warranted. And I should have listened, and I should have changed the strategic vision and focused on the outcomes versus the actual making it happen. All right, so Kotter says to enlist a volunteer army. Well, I did have a volunteer army. They were all QA, testers, people with the testing mindset, not with the DevOps mindset. I did not figure out till it was too late that we needed a couple engineering teams and product owners to buy into the vision and to, craft an experiment that we could go after for a couple months and show wins and find out the constraints and the barriers that we were going to face as part of this transformation. The more people, hindsight, the more people you have aligned, the more people that believe in the vision, the more likely you are to succeed at this transformation. This felt like a failure again to me. So a lot of it's reflection. When you're in the trenches trying to make this happen, the ask was to make it happen quickly, right? So you feel, as a leader, you feel the pressure to just do something, even though it didn't feel right. All right, so as a leader, this is what Kotter says we should have been doing as part of the plan. Execute the plan and remove all the barriers. Well, I don't even think we could see the barriers. The focus was landing all of the employees into their new career paths. The focus wasn't on transforming from a traditional, what I'll call a traditional agile testing model to a whole quality, a whole team model. So we didn't even, I personally did not even understand the barriers at the time. It was just, let's move, let's make this happen. And so if you were to ever lead a transformation, really think hard about what obstacles might happen, predict and solve for those. There are going to be curveballs that you can't predict. And so as a leader, you need to be ready to remove those barriers with a coalition, with an aligned body of supporters. All right, so the strategy should have had a set of short wins, right? What would the quick wins look like? Well, hindsight, if we had an engineering team that was an exemplar, that was doing DevOps well, we had some. We have a couple teams that deliver 10 times a day. All right, so that is a model that the CTO aspired us to get to, and then we should have shined a light on those teams. We should have extracted out all the lessons that made those teams accelerate. How did they optimize their pipeline? How did they do their testing? What did their automation look like? And we did none of that. So there wasn't these small victories to share with the community to inspire them to continue the transformation. All right, so in Kotter's model, think about how can we make incremental progress towards the transformation. All right, so I had to put a car in here. The CTO was very sports oriented. He used a lot of sports analogies. He talked about how in Formula One racing, the pit crew was like DevOps. They had all the monitoring. They knew when the tires were getting low. They could change them quickly. They could deliver and get back out on the track. And so for sustaining acceleration, you had to have the short wins. And I don't feel like we ever had the short wins, to be honest. I haven't really talked in depth with my colleagues about all of this. This is from a personal point of view. But if we had had the short wins, we could have then moved other teams that were ready into the new format. And the teams that weren't ready, we could have continued coaching, educating, and learning from on how to remove the constraints. So this is a difficult step, but if you don't have the short wins, I don't think you'll ever get to this step of the Kotter model. All right. Instituting change. That's what this whole model was about. That's what the ask was. I didn't even think about, was the system ready for change? What would the system look like? What tooling needed to be put in place? It was like, let's just go and then we'll figure it out as we get there. And it really didn't work. That's the moral of the story. It didn't work. And having learned the Kotter model after it, you know, if you think through these things and you think through them carefully and you bounce the ideas off of your coalition, I think you'll form a better transformation strategy. I imagine that a lot of you are seeing this, right? You guys have all heard the shift left, the you know, DevOps pipeline, et cetera, et cetera. So strategically think through the Kotter model, pick apart all the pieces, and find solutions and inspiring ways to move forward. I wish I wasn't reflecting on that. I wish I had done that. The true outcome was I was removed from the role. They brought in another director who had experience in DevOps and operations, and she was tasked with completing the transformation. That felt like a huge failure to me, right? I didn't get it done. It wasn't necessarily, it was a big curveball to my career path that I thought I was on. I will candidly share, I went from a senior director to a director. And having failed at this, I could see why those expectations adjusted my role or title. Subsequently, I frankly, role and title doesn't matter. It's, did I learn anything? And I think I learned a lot. And you have to think futuristic and you have to think about what success looks like. I didn't really get there. All right, so the second biggest lesson of all of this was that what was really important was educating the community, educating them on what the vision is, educating them on what this means to them. That includes product, engineering, analytics, all of the people who, this is probably not going to come out right, that were dependent on testers to fill the gaps. What does this success look like for them? So we testers are, I think, I love testing. Being a cognitive tester, thinking through applications and exploring the depths and the complexities of systems is exciting to me. And with that knowledge, we had an amazing staff. And so we should have kept a center of practice. I'll go into the next slide. A you know, a QMO or some central body of expertise that I should have insisted in the strategy that we keep this core group of people to educate on what good testing is, how to inject testing at all layers of the pipeline. We could have coached engineers on how to do white box testing and looked at their unit tests and made sure they weren't just happy path. And, you know, we could go on and on and on. And all of you guys probably have this expertise. We should have had an automation platform. We should have educated everybody on the automation that was in place, how to extend it, how to own it, how to amplify it? We did not. The outcome, quite frankly, was that the engineering teams all were in survival mode, and we ended up with 27 different UI automation frameworks. All right, so imagine what that world would look like, transferring from one team to another, having to learn a new tool every time you transferred. So that if I had to do it all over again, this is what I would have done. The interesting thing that is new when I first gave this presentation is that I'm getting a chance to do this again. I recently took on a role for the operational excellence team at Verbo, and we are putting together quality advocates. We are putting together experts in automation. I'm excited to partner with a colleague, Phil McNeely, on automation. A funny story, I don't know if any of you know of Phil. Phil did a co-presentation with me at CAST. When I first got hired in 2009 at Verbo, one of the goals was to build an automation framework. And it took me several months in to realize that Phil had already built an automation framework. In fact, it was awesome. And I didn't adapt it because it was in Java. And I was afraid of Java. I'll admit that. We're opening up my insides today, so I was afraid of Java. But we did collaborate. We did use some of his approaches, and I'm very pleased today that Phil is taking on that role, and we're going to correct this mistake. So we'll have a team of about 9 experts helping coach the community on what good quality looks like, looking at gaps, and educating. So this was a big mistake. So if you're going to make this transformation, please make sure that your company keeps the expertise to do this. That's lesson number 3. And then everybody's probably asking, okay, so you had all these testers, what roles did they move into? Well, that was my big goal. I wanted everybody to have a job. And so we had technical program managers or technical product managers, depending on what you want to call them. They were essentially, in the first iteration, they were Scrum Masters. So a lot of the testers became technical program managers. We also called a few of them test program managers. They were leading UATs and things like that. Some of them became engineers. A lot of our SDETs, our automation experts, became developers. That was a good story. A few became product owners. Some of them moved into program management. And then a large portion moved into the operational excellence team. And what that team's remit is monitoring, looking at signals to make sure our customers are having a good experience, incident management, all of those things were in that space. And we as testers have probably been involved in all of those pieces. So that was also a fairly good transition. So I don't know how I'm doing on time, but the end state is we're not there. We started in 2016. It's 2020. We still have a ways to go. And we do have some teams that deliver code, high quality code, frequently in small increments. They truly follow the DevOps model. We have a long ways to go on reliability, chaos engineering. So those are some of the things that we're looking at in the future. I encourage all of you wonderful testers to be thinking about those types of things. I'll share one more story. 2006, I was doing chaos engineering and didn't know it. I was responsible for our test lab. It was an AIX farm. We had 2 big AIX boxes. And one day I went in and just started unplugging things to see what would happen. The good news is I controlled the environment. It wasn't our customers, but we learned a lot of interesting things as I started taking out pieces of the puzzle. So chaos engineering is a new exciting space that everybody should consider. And with that, Patrick, Darren, I'm open to have a dialogue with this wonderful community that you've formed.
Great stuff. Okay, cool. Thanks a million, Carl. That was very informative. I'm sure there's a few questions in the chat box there, but anyone has any questions at all, guys, the Q&A box is there. So start filling it with some questions and we'll start getting them answered. Thanks, man. It was a good talk.
Yeah, great talk, Carl. Thanks a lot. I loved your stuff. Like, what did the testers do? what did they become? That's one thing that I'm always harping on about. People are probably sick of me saying it, but automation engineers are developers. Like, they're just for some reason not allowed to touch the main code base. I don't know why. But if you pair them with developers, they can become great developers. It seems just a waste of a resource to me. So I love that you guys managed to implement that and it worked well.
Okay, cool. Here's the first question after coming in, Carl. Does anyone else follow them in there as well? So Sharon's asking, how would you advise as an agile tester to skill up in preparation for DevOps transformation?
Oh, that's a fantastic question. I think the first thing I would recommend is that you start looking at log files as you do your testing. If you can run a log file, if you get visibility into a log file as you're testing, you can see interesting things happen. And so you're getting a sense of what's happening under the covers. I would recommend that. I would recommend that you understand what monitoring you do or don't have in place. If you're going to go fast, your monitoring has to be amazing, right? You have to be able to detect an impact on your customers before they do. And so having good monitoring, understanding the monitoring, Splunk, Datadog, being able to get in there and look at what the engineers are seeing, I highly recommend that. I would also start looking at maybe what's called synthetic testing or real user monitoring. A really good testing mindset allows you to think like a customer, and automation tests from the inside out, right? And monitoring is usually from the inside out, Splunk, Datadog, or stuff that's happening under the covers. Synthetics allow you to emulate what a customer does, and you can test from the outside in. We've all been trained to think like a customer, and I think that would be another area I would encourage everybody to start looking at. Love the question. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks for that, Sharon. Niamh McGann's after asking here, Carol, I have to know this book now. How long does it take you to read and digest the How Google Tests Software book?
So I am the slowest reader on the planet. I'll admit that, but I actually read it in a week for the first time. And then I went back the following week and selectively read chapters that I thought were the most inspirational. So 2 weeks. I bought 15 copies and shared them with the community. That was a thought that if we got everybody on the same page, this transformation would happen. Well, as I told you, I bought the wrong books, but it's still a good read. It really is. When you have an inspirational CTO who's already been there, done that, it's hard to predict where he wants you to go. And I should have asked a lot more powerful questions of him, and tried not to do it in a vacuum. If I can be frank, he was not very forthcoming on what success looked like to him. He gave us a couple target metrics. One was called first to know. Do we know within an hour of something escaping and impacting our customers? And then quick to fix, can we fix it in an hour? Those were the metrics he was after. We instrumented for that. I can tell you now, 4 years later, we're still struggling. So.
Cool. Okay, cool. Thanks for that, Niamh. A couple more coming in. This one's an anonymous one. I like this question. If the same CEO now decided waterfall was the way forward, as that's how Mr. Musk does it, would you just follow suit? And they've also said, P.S., they would if the wages kept coming. That's a good question.
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy.
I like how it's anonymous as well. That's a good one.
Yeah, I think personally I would part ways. But every methodology that I've done in my career, I did waterfall for a very long time, has taught us something, right? But what I love about Agile is that it's intended to adopt and learn, right? And so if I was forced to follow this model of maybe I'm wrong about waterfall, but throw it over the wall and wait for someone else to do something, it feels really constrained to me. Now that I've seen what DevOps is capable of, the rapid delivery, automatic rollback, testing incrementally through the pipeline and getting signal before you deploy, canary deploys, it's just much more exciting to go fast, right? And so I love the question. I honestly hadn't given it much thought, but I think I would walk away. I really would walk away because my passion would be gone. My passion is grounded on continuous improvement. And I think all of the books and all the wonderful people I've met in my career have encouraged continuous improvement and learning. And the T-shaped tester. In Potsdam, I had a wonderful conversation with, I think, Lisa and Janet about a T-shaped tester. They introduced that to me, and I think it was 2014. So yeah, I'd walk away, to be honest. I am part of the Agile community here in Austin, Texas, and I was at a meetup one time, and there was a company where this actually happened. They were moving on the Agile path, and a new leader came in and said, no, we're going traditional. And the two people I was talking with left that company. So great question. I'd love to hear other people.
Yeah, that is a really good question. Thanks for that. Gillian McAuliffe's asked, what were the barriers to change that became apparent over time? And can you give any examples of barriers you ended up having to break down?
I think the biggest barrier was there are teams that are addicted to manual testing. It was like crack. If they didn't have the manual testers, they didn't feel safe in releasing software. So overcoming that barrier is not easy. And so you have to teach them how to have confidence in the pipeline, the automation, the monitoring and the signal. A lot of engineering teams are focused on the next feature, and frankly, they're not given enough autonomy to focus on the monitoring, the technical debt, the things that are going to allow you to go fast and safe. So that was one. I guess the other one was that since I didn't do a good job with the vision, people just didn't see it as the right way forward, right? And so you have to have this coalition that's constantly pushing and learning and pivoting. We didn't have that. So everybody had to kind of learn on their own. I love the question. I need to give it some more thought, to be honest. Another barrier is just tooling, right? If you build an automation framework in Ruby and you have all these JavaScript developers, they don't want to use Ruby. They frankly don't want to use that language. And so you have to empower them in a language that they're comfortable with. Most of our UI automation is pivoting to JavaScript, Nightwatch framework. Let's see, another barrier is visibility into testing. We still struggle with this a little bit. I have no visibility into unit testing. Are we doing it well? I don't know. A few teams have allowed me to look under the hood. All the automation we do, it's all going to disparate places. And so it's hard to see in aggregate, are we getting better? Are we getting worse? Do we have areas for improvement? It's very hard to see. So those are some barriers we're still trying to overcome. And I'm excited to go after those in the next couple months.
Okay, cool. There's a few more here. Question from our pal Victor. Here we are. I love Victor's questions. See, I wind him up, but he knows I love him. What would be an elevator pitch to the CTO if you were to ask for more human testing resources?
Wow. So I'm going to have to caveat this, right? So at our heyday, we had 131. I don't think we needed to ask for more. If I was to go today, in fact, I've done this in the past few months, I've asked for people with a testing background that have a passion to educate others. And so this new group of 9 people, half of them have a passion for helping teams with automation, and half of them are going to be advocates for quality, start to finish. So I love this question because I'm a big believer in cognitive testing. All of us know how to think and use our brains to test in ways that engineers and product owners don't think about. I think there needs to be some of that still, but let's teach the whole. It's not a secret sauce. I mean, you hear Alan Page talk about this in some of his podcasts and things, but we can teach everybody to be great testers, and we should, right? And so those of us that have been on this journey for quite a while, I think that's our mission now, is let's teach everybody how to be cognitive testers. So that would be my pitch, is that we need to have a center of practice that can teach everybody else how to do this and do it well. Love the question. Gosh.
Just to interrupt, because I can. Would you would you call them test coaches? You know? I could keep beating this drum until.
Yeah. So I'll tell you, Darren, that coaches did not resonate. That the term coaches did not resonate. Coaches were more for career management and guiding, coaching people and life skills and things like that. So that term didn't resonate. Parts of Expedia call them quality assistants. I'm not a fan of that. I ended up following the Atlassian model, which is quality advocates. Part of the remit is definitely coaching and educating. I call them, we're educators. It didn't resonate. In fact, I had one VP say, nah, let's not do that. Let's not call them coaches. I had that in my original deck for this next transformation.
Okay.
So
interesting.
Yeah. End of the day, I think great testers can teach. So whatever we call us,
sure.
We can move forward. So I'd be curious to know on your adventures, how it resonates. I only have a small microcosm of where I use that term, right? So it'd be interesting to hear throughout the community how that term resonates and what you learn. So I'll stay in touch.
Oh, definitely. It's not going to be the last time you hear me, man.
he'll be mine. You 24/7 now. Okay, cool. We should have a couple more and we can finish out then. So question is, where do you do your testing in the DevOps pipeline? Do you have any exploratory testing stage?
All right. That's a great question. It's dependent on the teams, and it's dependent on what they're releasing. So day to day, the exploratory testing is in the hands of the developer. Do they do it? No. What we have settled on is the teams that are doing sprints, following Scrum methodology. At the end of the sprint, as part of their demo, they do a collaborative, we call them dojos. They do a collaborative test session where the entire team in the room, the product owner, the TPM, the engineers all execute exploratory testing on the new feature that they're about to release. And that's what we encourage. And we also encourage pairing. You know, have one engineer test the other engineer's implementations. But having a defined stage in exploratory testing for exploratory testing in the pipeline, it does not exist.
Okay, cool. A couple more. I might have to bring you into this actually, Igor. Igor's asked, is there a danger of losing a job when a tester becomes a DevOps engineer but cannot become a good one?
Oh boy.
Yes, no.
I would think yes. I mean, I'll just be honest, yes. I recently didn't know where I was going career-wise. I stepped out of management, out of leadership, and I took on a role. I called myself a resiliency advocate. And in 3 months' time, I read reliability workbook. I read. And so to not lose your job, you know, you have to step up and educate yourself. You have to find successful people who have done it and have them try to see if they'll be your mentor or your coach, per Darren. And so you're not in danger of losing a career. My whole framing has changed. I mean, going at speed is amazing, but you need to do it with high quality. And so understanding all the pieces of the puzzle has become very interesting for me, right? You know, what role does monitoring play? What role does incident management play? I've done a lot of studying on the human side of incident management. When it comes right down to outages in production, usually it's due to some human error, right? So understanding that aspect of an incident is very intriguing to me. John Allspaw, former, I believe, of Etsy and Adaptive Capacity Labs, I had the pleasure of learning from them. So change is hard. I think that's the moral of this whole presentation. On the individual basis, make sure you're staying up with the tech. I mean, it's going fast, and it's going to continue.
Okay, cool. Just the last few questions then, if that's okay.
Yeah.
How do you ensure your test automation is reliable and gives fast feedback?
Oh boy. Well, that's Phil McNeely's job now. No, it's, so I have this phrase. I don't know if I've coined it. I think I coined it. I'll claim it.
I can bring you in, Phil, if you like, if you want to explain it.
It's called just enough testing. There is such thing as having too much testing, right? You end up having everything, all the checks pass. What it does is give you a level of confidence that you're not breaking stuff, but it could take a long time to run, right? It could slow down the pipeline. So you have to achieve this balance, and I think it's a moving target. And you know, you'll hear people argue that automation's intended to find bugs. I think it's intended to build layers of confidence. And you build upon it. You know, the DevOps handbook has a wonderful pyramid. Foundation is unit tests, and then it just goes all the way up to UI. It's a full-time job to pay attention to your testing. I think we're kind of fortunate in that Expedia has a center of practice where they've built a platform, and it parallelizes tests very well in a pipeline, gives you rapid feedback. And I think it's just a constant optimizational journey. It really is. And you're going to have bumps in the road. And if you don't dedicate to it, it's bound to fail. The same thing with the model of having a separate automation org. If you're not maintaining it and you're not dedicating people to it, you're going to struggle. So it's got to be part of your day-to-day life as part of the pipeline, is reviewing your testing, how long it takes. Is it all passing? Is it valuable anymore? You have to constantly ask those questions. So.
Okay, Cool. So we got one more question in here, and then that's pretty much just, let's see. So again, it's an anonymous one. It might be the same anonymous person, or maybe somebody's got an odd name. But does DevOps reduce live defects of a higher priority severity, or across the board from showstoppers to trivial?
I will say in my experience, no. Right? Things are going to escape. It's the bottom line. It's what you do about them that's important, right? In this model, it's fixing them quickly, right? It's trying to prevent the P1s. You're trying to prevent the severity ones from getting out. Having automatic rollbacks and detection is critical. Can you get back to the last state of known success quickly? Ideally within minutes and not hours. Once you know of the bug, can you roll code forward to resolve the bug? You got to acknowledge the bug. So things do escape. I don't have enough data to prove one way or another whether the frequency is higher. I don't have any evidence to share. You know, some of the bugs that I found in my career were through just some crazy exploratory testing, and I don't think you know, automation's ever going to catch those. Customers are going to catch them because they do crazy things, right? Yeah, in the DevOps model, you have to be prepared to fix them quickly. Bottom line.
Okay, cool. And that's pretty much all our questions. Thanks everyone for firing them in. They always help at the end, and thanks for getting through them all, Carl, as well. It was a good bit there to get through. That's pretty much it. Yeah, that was brilliant talk. I think there's going to be some really good feedback on that. For anyone, if your colleagues or any of your mates that you think would be benefit from this as well, we'll have it up on YouTube tomorrow. So if anyone wants to share it with anyone they work with, or anyone wants to show some of the stuff they've learned here for some of their colleagues, their peers, and that as well, it's probably definitely worth sharing across. So I'll put it up on LinkedIn tomorrow afternoon, and anyone can have a look at it and get it across. But Carol, thanks a million for joining us all the way from Texas. Really, really appreciate it. It's definitely
thanks so much, buddy.
Yeah, it's definitely been a big plus, I suppose, the lockdown series, that we can actually access people like yourself from across the world as well, because it's probably not as easy to get you in for the day, to fly you into our office and come and do a talk. But you never know. But next year we'll see what happens when we get meetups and that back and come stuff over. But it's definitely been a real positive. Again, we're probably going to keep it going for as long as we can. The next few months, as I said, things are still changing as well. But anything else you want to add, Carl, at the end, or anything else?
I just want to say thanks for having me. Find me on Twitter. If you want to have a beverage and discuss testing, I have opinions on everything. My colleagues will tell you that.
And heavy metal music.
Amen. So just reach out. I'm really happy to help. I think this is a vibrant community, and thank you for having me. Really
perfect for that. So I'll send out the link to everyone in the group tomorrow, guys, with the talk as well, and I'll include Carl's contact details and his Twitter handle as well, and that's as well. So as he said, please feel free to reach out to him if you have anything you want to add on further in that as well. Again, we'll announce the next meetup in the next week or so. We'll probably go again the end of the month, start of August time, the next 3 or 4 weeks. We have any stuff again in the pipeline. But again, if anyone wants to talk with something, or do you want to if there's a topic you want to hear about, if you don't want to present yourself, if there's something you want to hear about or something's going to benefit you or your community or your job, do get in touch with Darren or I, and we'll find someone for you. We have a lot more access at the moment as well, because we don't just have to find people in Ireland. You can see the quality, caliber of people we're getting from having Carl and Pete over the last 2 meetups as well. We can cast our net a bit further afield, and Darren seems to have met all these people drinking somewhere around the world. So not a lot of random drinking buddies from around the world.
It's like, hey, do you like pints? Do you like talking about testing and drinking?
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
But I think this is also a great opportunity for people who are on the kind of precipice of not speaking or haven't spoke at a conference before or anything like that. It's a really good opportunity, because it's not so hard to speak from your house, and you don't have the big crowd in front of you. It's less daunting. So if anyone does want to speak, please do reach out. And
that's the big one. We've had some people over the last 2 years that have got in touch to ask to present and ask to talk, and they're like, I've had some people being quite wary, going, oh, I'm quite nervous with speaking, or I'm not really sure if I'm confident enough for it. It's like, it's first of all, it's a free event. So if someone doesn't like you, get your money back. That's the simplest way I would phrase it. But you know, it's people are supportive. People, as Carol said, it's a good community, and thankfully the people we have involved in this meetup, and I think people across Ireland as a whole are generally quite supportive people. So if you feel someone's a bit nervous, you're probably going to give them more of a nudge to do it as well. So if you think coming out of this lockdown at the moment, you think, okay, cool, there is something that I'm really good at. And everyone, I was looking at the participants tab there, some really cool experienced people are in this talk again now as well, and some new faces, which is great as well. And some of those guys and some of those ladies, put your hands up if you're going to talk with someone in the next few months and come on and do it, whether you want to do it on a webinar or you want to do it live in a few months' time when we get back to normal, hopefully at some stage. We'll support you, but don't ever be too shy to speak. You know, it's a supportive community. And the topics we have, we're always trying to keep it different every month as well. So there's some people I know, I was looking at the participants tab, and I'm going to reach out to a few of you separately because a few I'm going to chase that I think are going to have some interesting stuff. Some people have some quite niche topics and some niche jobs and that they do as well. So it'd be cool to get some cool niche stuff coming up as well, and maybe some upcoming technologies that might be relevant to other people, so we can cast the net. But again, reach out. But that's pretty much it. Carol, thanks a million. Really, really cool. Thanks for taking the hour of your time to do it as well. I know you're busy and know you said you've had a hectic week already. But you can see the chat box come through, and I'll share your details with everyone tomorrow. And anyone wants to reach out or find you on LinkedIn or find you on Twitter,
send my love to your family, Carl.
Thanks, Darren. See ya.
Okay, cool. Thanks, guys. Stay safe. Okay? Take care.
Thanks for having me.
Bye now.
Bye.